Hi everybody, and welcome to the third talk in this little mini series on Romanesque capita and tympana and churches and monasteries. You today will be carrying on. We left off in Moissac last Thursday. So this is the cloister of Moissac. That's behind me as a screen. So we're going to start off there. But beforehand, I thought I'd just recap a bit as to what we've done so far and tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. Am I screen sharing? Yeah. So let's just go to Google Maps. Can you see Google Maps here?
Yeah.
Yep. Right. So this is what we did the last two times. We've been in Berze-la-Ville and Avalon nearby. We've been in Autun at the Church of Saint-Lazare, the Cathedral of Saint-Lazare. We talked about Cluny and all the Cluny dependencies, PARAY-Le-MONIAL, ANCY-LE-DUC, the Venice, the little chapel in Berze-la-Ville where we've got the paintings. So that's what we did so far. I'd like to all my windows. And so today I thought that we would do a bit of a loop here. So if we're starting off down here in Moissac, we'll just dip into Toulouse very quickly, go to Conques. Excuse my French once again, I don't speak French, so my pronunciation is not at all good. We're going to look at a couple of interesting places, Fontefraud, and we're going to go to Montbard, and we'll dip back to Cluny at the end. So we're going to do a little bit of a circle. And while we're doing that circle, I'd like to also just sort of introduce you. What I've tried to do during these talks is, because it can get fairly deep, was to introduce the subject briefly and then sort of later circle back to it and go in a bit deeper. So we're going to be expanding some of the topics that we've been touching on, because really we set out asking the questions: what was it like to live around the year 1100? What were the political conditions, the economic conditions? What role did the church play? What role did pilgrimage play? How did art fit into this whole thing? And so we're expanding on those topics, and obviously there are a lot of answers depending on where you're talking about and exactly what time the answers change. But I think one can see patterns, and so we've been looking at the way that some monastic systems come up and go down again, get replaced by others. We've been looking at how the best intentions get corrupted quite quickly through money and wealth and everything else. So there are a number of themes that are running behind that. So I'm going to expand on those themes today. I'm also going to show you another person here, this guy called Philibert of Jumages. You might remember that Alex spoke about him. And we're going to look at his track, because I think it's interesting to see his life and how that, again, it all gets expressed in the buildings, in the tympana, in the capita, in the artworks. And that's what we're really doing, what you're doing with Alex's art history. And this is the great thing. We're looking at history, we're looking at art, we're looking at the interplay, because there's a feedback mechanism in both. So let's go to the pictures, because that's really what you're here to see. And let's go to Adobe Lightroom. So we'll just cut me out of the background there. This is the Moissac cloister. So if we go, I'm just going to have to sort of bounce backwards and forwards a bit to get to this stuff. So if we go out here and we look here. So we looked at this last time. Do you remember we looked at the abbey with the great tympana that actually comes from the south side and not from the west side as would be normal. We looked at that wonderful great tympana. And we looked a little bit inside into this whole narthex area here. Most of this stuff is gone. What remains is the abbey and here the cloister. So today we're going to be going into the cloister. And This cloister was built around 1100. So the abbey was started in about 1050, 1060, when an abbot called Durand was appointed. He was also the Bishop of Toulouse, and as the Bishop of Toulouse, he was actually a Cluniac monk who was appointed there, because Cluny, and it all comes back to Cluny. The story always comes back to Cluny. Cluny took over the Moissac Abbey and also took over Saint-Senan in Toulouse. And you'll remember that Alex spoke about Saint-Senan. Where's Toulouse? Here's Toulouse. And down here, Saint-Senan. So this is the church. This is the front of the church, the west front. And here you can see the side with this phenomenal tower. These, again, one of these, I think it's hexagonal. You can see the side entrance here. So we were able to go up to it and go inside. This was right at the beginning of the, well, this was the second phase of COVID. And we'd done Italy, the first phase of COVID. We did France, this whole French trip, the second. So we were able to get into most places, but we weren't able to get very far in Saint-Senan. So you can see the great tympana here. And this has a very specific iconography. You'll see the same thing that you've seen everywhere, the apostles standing below, looking up and commenting, Jesus above, the angels, etc. That's pretty standard. Then I like these guys. I thought they were quite fun. I don't know what they're doing, but they looked like two fat abbots or something like that. But when we went inside, we weren't actually allowed to do anything. We could get in. I took a couple of pictures on the inside here, as you can see. But it was actually closed off. And they have phenomenal capita. But you have to go in, and you can see up here they are, but you've got to go upstairs to do that, and we weren't allowed to. So I'm not going to show you that. I'd like to, and it's relevant because the same guy that did all of this, Durand, and now we're talking 1065, when after Cluny had taken over Toulouse and taken over Moissac, and they said, you guys need to sort of up your game a bit. And so they did a big building program. There was also a lot of theological aspects to it in terms of saying, this is the doctrine, this is what you've got to do. And Durand was the boy that did that. So as I say, Durand was the, where am I going? I'm going to Moissac. Durand was the bishop of Toulouse, but he was also the abbot of Moissac. And what he did is he took the same sculptors that worked in Toulouse, and you can actually see a lot of them evidently, because I didn't actually see it there, but from reading about it, you can see it's the same guys that did similar themes, and so very different from, say, Berze-la-Ville, where you just had, or Autun, where you had Julius Bertus was the local guy, and he started off there, and you didn't have in that northern part of Burgundy the same concept of sort of sculptors that were really officially sculptors. So here we go in here, back to, there's a lot of, this is going all the way around. It's quite a big one. So this was built in 1100, but you might notice it's Gothic, right? So you'd say that's not possible. And you'd be right. So what happened was they built, Durand set out the start of the things, and then you have another abbot that comes a little bit later who had the building of the cloister, where Durand had started the rest. And 200 years later, they dismantled everything extremely carefully, left the columns standing, left the cabaret on top, and rebuilt everything using a Gothic style. They must have said, this is too fuddy-duddy and old-fashioned, we don't like it. But they left the capita in place. So you must think that this is an 1100 column and capita, but it's actually a later building on top of it. So here we have, who have we got here? Oh, this is Simon. I just want to go to the middle here somewhere, see if I can spot him. So here we have Apostle Peter. Oh, it's going to get a bit too difficult. Here we are. Here's our Abbot Durand. So if you look at the square, you'll notice. So when I put this, I've got descriptions of the capita for you to read. I've sent you the link, and what I've got here as well. Here's your grid pattern. The square of the cloisters. Actually, it's rectangular, but let's call it square. And here's the east. So we're on the east side, and we're on the 10th column. So that's the middle. And here in the middle, you've got like a slab thing. And on the one side, you have the abbot, and on the other side, you have the other abbot that built it. So this one here, this is Abbot Durand. And it actually says here, Abbot Durand, but he's also the bishop. So he calls him, it says Bishop of Toulouse. And he's standing there. He's in the middle. And on the opposite him is the, if you look at this, so he's here. Opposite him is the abbot that paid for the whole thing. And on the corners are the various apostles. And then in between it, you've got the capita, and you'll notice they go from single to double to single to double. And the difference here, where I wanted to really show it to you, is that these are real carrying columns, as opposed to what you've been seeing in Autun and places where it's up against a wall, and it's it's got a certain amount of load bearing to do, but these things have to carry everything, which makes quite a difference. So we've got a lot of the same topics that you've seen before, and some new ones. But the interesting thing is that you actually can see it from all four sides. I haven't taken all four sides because it was actually too difficult. I didn't have access. Also, the light and the heat and everything was pretty intense. So what do we have here? You'll see that what they have is they have they'll have this incredible frieze. And every time, just looking at the friezes of these things, it's fascinating. But then you also have underneath it about 4 pictures going around. Sometimes they get viewed end on, sometimes in the middle. This one is, let's get it here. So this is the anointing of David, and this is from the start of it's quite interesting from a history perspective. So what happens is Samuel, who is an Israelite, as opposed to a Judaite, because you can tell that by the L ending. The Judeans worshipped Yahweh, the Israelites worshipped El, and they were actually Canaanites. They say that they weren't, but they really were Canaanites. And El and his wife Asherah, and the whole pantheon of gods that it was in those days. It was polytheistic. The Jewish religion was not monotheistic. And so you had Saul, who's getting replaced by David. You'll remember that this is the start of the whole Judean line. Very important because it goes, his father's name is Jesse, and you have the Jesse tree going all the way down to Jesus, establishing Jesus's genealogy. As we remarked last time, his mother was a virgin, so the fact that Joseph was actually of the Jesse line, how that affected Jesus's DNA is difficult to determine. But we'll just sort of, that's why you just, if the bishop says it so, then it is so. So here you have the people, they had to wave to him from the gate. They had to sort of surreptitiously bring him in. Here you have the horn. So this is all around David. And they brought a cow in to sort of pretend that they were doing something else. So the big thing, the two big differences between this and say Vézelay or especially Autun is that here this is a very specific iconography. There's a very strong church leader who is a theologian and who wants to put across very theological points. And the whole thing, you don't find much history here at all. There are a couple of things, but they're not. Remember, we saw things, Achilles, education and teachers and all sorts of stuff. This is Old Testament, New Testament, prophets, you know, It's really hammering it in with a big mallet, and very specifically, deliberately chosen topics carved by professional sculptors. It's earlier, it's 20 years earlier than Artun, it's 20 years earlier than Berze-la-Ville, but it still is. So we've got various birds and wild animals. Here we have 4 columns, all with the same writing on it. And it's the Beatitudes. Okay, so what this is the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, and blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the, etc. So this is again a specific statement of doctrine, and it goes around the columns. And what you'll also notice is there's a lot of writing there. It's fairly difficult to read. A, you must speak Latin, and B, they don't write everything fully. They use some sort of shorthand and they scatter it around. So but you can work it out. And I've got the Latin and the English translation for you there. Let's have a look here. Here we've got our old friend Daniel in the lion's den again. We've seen him many times. But you'll notice a very different style. Let's look for some interesting ones for you here. All right, here's Cain and Abel. The story of Cain and Abel, as you know, that's a very important one. And here you have Cain bringing his gift to God. And I know it's God or the angel. I think it's the angel. So here it says Abel, so we know it's Abel. And he's bringing a hunk of I think, mutton. I think he's bringing a lamb. And the angel is saying, good job, well done. That's a nice gift, thank you. Along comes poor old Cain. And Cain brings, so Abel is a herdsman and Cain is a farmer. And he brings a sheaf of, I guess, wheat or something. And it's not even an angel, it's a devil. You see, he's got the devil's claws. He says, nope, don't like that. So he actually rejected his gift. And you'll see at the top here, it says, diabolus, recipit, the devil receives the gift of Cain. And poor old Cain, as I say, you know, that's why various, you know, the descendants of Cain will be hewers of coal and drawers of water. And that's been applied by various regimes to different racial groupings and justified all sorts of things. I'm from South Africa, I remember that. So anyway, here you've seen what Cain and Abel. So along comes Cain and he kills Abel. Here you can see him killing Abel. And then you'll remember God says to, you remember the one with the teenager, if you that really beautiful one. So here you've got God saying, unfortunately it's pretty weathered, saying, ubi est Abel. So where is Abel, Cain? And he says, I don't know. It's not Nescio. Don't ask me. I have no idea. And there's the angel saying, no, he did it. I can see it behind there, which I think is quite a cute one. Anyway, so that was Cain and Abel. Here, there's one. This is an interesting one. This here, here you have a guy standing in the middle, and this is a griffin, evidently, not an eagle. I thought it was an eagle, but it's a griffin. And you'll see that they got ropes and he's being held onto. Do you know what this is? Any guesses? It's the Ascension of Alexander. So this was very popular. I think it was a story from the 3rd century, which was very popular in the Middle Ages. Alexander the Great ascended into heaven, carried up by 2 griffins. And this is the only sort of Christian religious thing in all of these that I could find, apart from, you know, the normal birds and griffins and flowers and all that sort of stuff. But so again, it shows that there were beliefs back then held by eminent theologians, which it was important to show. And of course, we know that Alexander the Great probably didn't ascend to heaven. I think he died of malaria in the swamps of Ur, in actual fact. So, and here again, if you look around these columns, you'll see that there's a different head on each side. He sort of gets older, the face gets older. What have we got here? Here's poor old John the Baptist. They love that. I mean, the thing is that John the Baptist is a prefiguration of Jesus, right? It's he's the best man at the wedding, saying, I'm the sort of pre-show, and this is the main show that's coming. His dying is then prefiguration of Jesus is dying. So they go to town on this one. So here you see he's in jail. He's got his in prison. He's got his hands tied, and the jailer is pulling him out of the jail to behead him. Here you have Herod sitting at his table. You've got to sort of use your imagination on this stuff because it has been weathered, but it is there. Here's John's head, John the Baptist's head. This is Herodias, his wife. And if you remember, his wife, it was an incestuous relationship. I think it was his son's, somehow his son-in-law was also his grandson, who was also, and she was the wife, and I don't know. Anyway, John the Baptist had reprimanded him for this. Previously, Herod had actually been a supporter of John the Baptist and had sort of protected him. And then, but when John the Baptist said, no, you can't take Herodias as your wife, that's when he said, stick him in jail. And Herodias is dipping her fingers into the blood here that is coming from his head. Quite grotesque. Here you have Salome doing the dance of the seven veils, and which is the daughter, right? And then around the corner here, so this one is getting read from right to left. Around the corner, did I get around the corner? There it is. So here you've got a small figure looking up to a big figure. This is John the Baptist pointing his finger at Herod and saying, not good, retribution will come and all the rest. So that's very much sort of giving the monks courage to go out and be very dogmatic and telling everybody, there's one way of doing things and this is the right way and everything else is the wrong way. What have we got? The city of Babylon. So the city of Babylon is the bad guys. It's very sinful. This is all coming from Revelations, from the revelation of John of Patmos, where you had the whore of Babylon, and everything bad is Babylon. Everything good is Jerusalem. And so they're always contrasting Jerusalem and Babylon. Just trying to see. Oh, Nebuchadnezzar. There's loads in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So Nebuchadnezzar is tied to Daniel, and Daniel is a prefiguration of Jesus, and all of Nebuchadnezzar's dreams are all prefiguration. So they do a lot of that. Here you see the city of Jerusalem as opposed to the city of Babylon. Then what have we got? I really like that. The various things around the miracles of Jesus, you'll remember those. What is this? So here he's raising somebody from the dead. I can't remember. Is this Jesus? The healing of the possessed daughter and the healing of a son of a Roman centurion. And then this last one is the story of the Good Samaritan coming along. Anyway, some visions of John. This is the transfiguration. So Jesus goes up onto the mountain and takes three of his apostles with him, his disciples, and you can see him on the left. You can always tell it by the cross in his halo, and then he is transfigured. I think he talks to some of the old prophets like Elijah and somebody else, and they're watching this, and then they fall down on their knees in front of a tree. And then he comes back and he talks to them and says, don't tell anybody until later. So that's a transfiguration. What else do we have here? Okay, this is an old story. You've seen this in the other case, Peter's released from prison. So here Peter is in the jail. This is a common representation of someone being inside a building, that the angel comes down and says, I've got the combination to the lock. And here he's got out of it, and he's saying thank you, and he says, I really believe now. So this is really around a statement of absolute belief. We have this one, you remember, Samson and the lion. Out of something strong, out of the mouth of something strong comes something sweet. That's that story. Again, this is all because of its theological value. So the cloisters are only used by the monks. No one else is going to go wandering around there. So the message is very much targeted at them. And they're walking there, and while they're walking, perambulating around in their peripatetic way, they can look at the columns and think about them and reflect, etc. There's Lazarus and the glutton. Remember the story of Dives. So you can see there's a lot of parallel stories. It's Dives. Here he is sitting at his table. He's only got his one woman here. This is a man, probably someone admonishing. You can see there's dogs under the table and everything. So it's a slightly different representation. And here you see, I think, Lazarus getting resurrected, or getting lifted up. Oh yes, Abram receives the soul of Lazarus. So there's this is quite a fun one. So here you got, this is the marriage at the marriage feast at Cana. So you've got Jesus with his mother, and he's holding his hand. Here he is. And there's Mother Mary, I think it says so there. And here he's got 3 jugs of water, and he's just turning it into wine. And this is the house of Cana, where the whole wedding feast was at. Here they're all sitting at table. This is the husband. This is the wife. You can see he's got his cup in his hand. She's also got a drinking vessel in her hand. She's pointing at it, or he's pointing it up there. So they're drinking it, and they're saying to each other, this really tastes good. These guys are all saying, hang on, you see, they're all pointing. Remember the Cluniac hand signals and stuff? You see all this, there's a lot of hand stuff going on here. And they're all pointing at the wine on the table, and one guy's in the thing is saying, this tastes like wine. This is really good wine. What happened? So this is all about the miracle. I think it's quite fun, all the movement that takes place in that. So you can see them a bit better version. So then we get to, so then, as I said, on the corners, you had these different apostles. Here you've got James, Jacobus, you've got John. So they're like 90 degrees to each other around the corner. And let's see if I can find any interesting ones for you. If we're going to move on, we'll probably move on. There's more Daniel in the lion's dens. Yes, so St. Martin was very important. St. Martin was the real French, the French saint. You remember he was in Autun because he actually visited Autun. He was a real person who existed, Martin of Tours. And he cut, if you remember, he cut the cloth with his sword so that he could give it to the beggar. And here you see that again. Then here, Martin is holding the complete cloth. And so what this is saying that although it's been cut apart, it's been joined together. And this is the Old Testament and the New Testament dovetailing together, because the two are very different things. And there were great pains to say there's a continuum. The whole thing is a continuum. all of these prophets and whoever else that were prefiguring. So this is symbolic of the joining of the New Testament and the Old Testament together. Here you see Jerusalem, and what happened here? I think he raised someone from the dead. I mean, you had to do that. If you want to become a saint, you had to perform miracles or magic, and raising him from the dead was a good one. So that's beautiful. They're just stunning, the friezes around the top. This is, so when I took the pictures, I didn't have a system to it. I was also working based on where the sun was coming from and everything else. So I had to patch them together. I didn't go around the columns round and round. I took the pictures and thought I'll be able to put them together later. Well, that was quite a job. And the frieze, the good thing is that these friezes are uniform. They're the same frieze or similar type going around. So that was one clue, but it was quite a job. I think you've got the picture here. There's a lot of stuff, a lot more stuff there, but I think that's probably enough of Moissac. So let's go to Conques. Has anyone here been to Conques at all, possibly? No? Well, it's in this if you see the Val de Ciel and the Val de Lot, these are two rivers. The two rivers that go down and make this one huge valley. It carves its way down through this limestone, the whole limestone region. So you get these beautiful valleys. I'll just show you briefly some of the really beautiful. Here's a Le Cirque de la Popie. This is a town just across. There's because we're down in the valley below, and looking up to the church. Here's the village is below the church here. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And if you do go down to this part of the world, so this is the Languedoc in Occitania, in Occitane, I highly recommend it. Let me just go and try and find, let's just zoom in a bit. Here you can see an aerial view coming into the town where we parked in the parking lot. And then you walk down through this place. Everybody who had a pigsty or a cattle, a pigsty gets turned into a 2-bedroom tourist apartment for a lot of money. They built everything, but just have a look how it's absolutely spectacularly beautiful. It says, but the food was good there. This is the center of the town, and so it was just wonderful. So this is the heavenly light in the church. This was the whole thing about Saint-Denis. So I haven't been showing you the colored glass windows. If we wanted to do that, I've got thousands of those. And the whole thing was it gave the heavenly light, was the colored light that came from the windows. And they try to achieve that effect. So I guess that's enough. That's sort of just walking into the village. It's just beautiful. Okay, so let's go from there. Let's go to Conques. So we drove to Conques, and this is the town of Conques. So we came from the top. I think I got to Google it if I haven't got it. So it's very difficult to get. It's very mountainous. And what Conques was it was at the beginning of the pilgrimage road, and it was a separate line of pilgrimage. And let me find it here. So here, if we look at so if you remember this, so here we got these are the different pilgrimage routes. Here you've got through Toulouse. Here's Moissac. So you came from Le Puy, which we did with Alex. Remember, Le Puy is up in the mountains there, down through Conques, Cahors, and Moissac, and then down. This is basically following these valleys. It was a very out-of-the-way place, and it still is out of the way today. And basically, Conques started around about Carolinian times, around about 800, 810, and had a massive heyday through to about 1200, and then it basically disappeared from the map, luckily, because by about 1500, it had been totally forgotten and been filled in. All the pilgrimages had stopped. They stopped around about late 1200s, and it literally was just covered with rubble, and nobody knew it was there. So when the wars came along, when you had the religious wars in France in 1560, they didn't go and damage it. And when the revolutionaries came along and did all their massive damage in 1789 and beyond, nobody touched it either, because no one even knew it was there anymore, which is very lucky. And it's very steep. We came down the hill. I'll just show you pictures of the town because it's also really pretty. And we came down the hill following the Mercedes navigation device, and we came across this bridge. We got to this bridge on the other side, and this bridge is literally about that much wider than the Mercedes's wing mirrors with them flapped in. And Uda got out and got in front, and I drove over this thing because there's no ways that I was going back up the hill again and all the way around. So even today, it's really difficult to get to if you follow, especially if you follow the wrong nav device. So what this is the church. It was built. There were some interesting stories around. It was first built, say, around about 800, 810. It was Louis the Pious, who was the son of Charlemagne, so that's 810. And then his son, is it Pepin the Short? I think it was Pepin the something, or I think it was Pepin the Short. And so you can see this is very much a sort of in the same style as the Cluniac style. Here's the front, the west front. You can see it's a very Germanic sort of militaristic establishment, and it had to be. When it was the main building was built around about 1000, and there was a specially built 1060. So this is a lot earlier than was going, and 60 years earlier than was happening up in Burgundy. There was all of these knights feuding, and I told you about that last time. This monastery actually was very instrumental in organizing the Pax Dei, the peace of God, which was a formal treaty made between the knights and the monasteries and the people, so they wouldn't come around marauding and killing everyone and just stealing everything from the monasteries. But it had to, at the same time, to have some sort of militaristic function. Here you can see it as it was 100 odd years ago, where it had a ramp and didn't even have the thing on it. This is from the side. This is a very, very old water basin, which might have been used for baptism. I think it's made from porphyry or something like that. Serpentine, green serpentine. Anyway, so this is the church on the outside. It's spectacular, absolutely spectacular. Have you seen the tympanum of Conch? Do you remember, Jennifer, whether Alex has shown you the tympanum of Conch?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You have? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
You don't remember? Okay, well, let's look at the tympanum, or let's look at the outside first, then go inside. So you get a lot of these guys. I think there's like 14 of them. These guys that are, and you can see them all the way around the top there. You notice over here, these are all these guys just peeping out, and you'll see them peeping everywhere. There they are, holding on. And they don't really know what their significance was. They call them the observer. So this is the tympanum. And the amazing thing is that it's been completely maintained. This is what all the other stuff would have looked like if all those idiots that called themselves academics or highly principled people hadn't gone and deliberately vandalized them. So what you've got here, you'll see you've got 3 registers. I go into this in considerable detail, so we can sort of zip through it. You can see down here is sort of heaven. Here is hell. Here's Christ. Above that are various symbols, which I'll show you. So it's sort of, that's the rough sorting. You can see the original paintwork here, which is pretty spectacular. And okay, so I'll tell you all about it there. So let's look at the top. So at the top, you've got the cross being lifted up by the angels. You have, here it says Sol, and here it says Luna. This is actually the sun and the moon. One interpretation is that this is sort of God establishing his command over both day and night. Another interpretation would be that there were all sorts of heathen practices going on at the same time, and that they didn't want to miss out by not including two very important heathen gods. You can see some more oliphants getting blown here, which was a favorite activity amongst the hunters. There's the angels. I'll zip through it because I actually have quite a lot here. So you can look at the color on these and the definition. The one is holding the spear, the lance here. The other is holding the nail. And of course, those are the symbols of the passion of Christ. This thing is meant to scare the hell out of you too. That's the whole purpose of it. So if we look at the next one, so this is the next level, and you've got various things going on here. You'll see they're getting larger and larger as they come to Jesus. These are the four evangelists, the symbols of the four evangelists. On this side here, you've got the original abbot, I think his name was Bruno, who was from about 800. And he was the original abbot that created this thing. You've got Peter here. Oh, no, sorry, this is the abbot. This is Abbot Bruno, and he's leading Charlemagne. The whole Charlemagne story is thoroughly fabricated. It was, as I say, his son and his grandson that were historically correct, but Charlemagne probably didn't have anything to do with this place at all. They have, for example, an A, and that they were given, made out of metal, which they were given by Charlemagne. And everyone believes this, and you can pay a lot of money to see it. And eventually he established all these monasteries, and he did from A to Z. And they were A, so they were the most important one. Well, it's been carbon dated to the 11th century. And Charlemagne was 800, as you know, 750 to 810. So highly unlikely that that story is true. But it doesn't make it matter. They still keep it there. So here you've got, so let's carry on to the other side. So then, so you've got Jesus in the middle being picked up by angels, the whole normal story. You've got the four evangelists, the signs of the four evangelists. And then you get into sort of the bad side as opposed to the good side. I don't think this is hell yet. I think this is just the sort of the evils that are going on as opposed to the goods on the other side. You can see a guy getting chopped up here. Here, there's more beard pulling going on. Here, someone's gonna, you can see the striations that I told you about before, where you can see that they've been hit with whips or whatever. This guy isn't just having his beard pulled, but he's in a fire. You can see the flames there. And this is meant to scare the bejeebers out of you if you're coming up. There's more stuff. I'm not too sure what's happening to this lady, but it's not going to be good. Other guy's getting lifted up on ropes by his feet. You can see here, not nice stuff. So then you go across to the left. So now we get down to the middle section. So what this is, I think I just have before that. So now you've got depiction of heaven and hell. So up here you've got, this is Saint-Foy, Foy, or Saint Faith. There's a whole story around that. She's her relic. They've got a piece of her skull. Is the main reason why this whole thing exists, and the whole culture around her faith, around Saint Faith, is what made put Conch on the roadmap, on the map, and basically enabled its whole pilgrimage to take place. And I can show you about that. Here you see God's hand. I'll get back to Saint Faith then. So here's God's hand welcoming her in. Here you've got the various elders and others of the church sitting with Abraham in the middle. I did that too fast. With Abraham in the middle. There's Abraham sitting in the middle there. And then if we go to the right of that, then above here, so above it, you can see the people getting lifted out of their graves. You see the angels are pulling the lids off. Sorry, jumps all the time. The angels are pulling the lids off the sarcophagi, and these are the good guys. They're gonna make it, because if you look further down, let's get rid of that. Right, we go over here. You see that here's a door, nice round door, and I guess it's St. Peter is letting all the chosen into heaven. On the other side, you've got another sort of door, which doesn't look as nice. And that's the door to hell. And the devil is hitting the guys with a cudgel and sending them in. Above it, you can see the scales. So these are the scales. He's actually holding the scales in his hand. And the devil's using his finger to try and push the scale down. You know, the normal story that you've seen everywhere else. This is where the souls are weighed. And obviously, if you look at where it is, Jesus is directly above that. Yeah. So if you look here, so if you look down from here, so you've got the cross, you've got Jesus. Jesus under his feet is the weighing of the souls and the parting of the ways left and right. This is the day of judgment. As you know, as you gathered, the two big topics, either it's the apocalypse or it's the day of judgment. Those are the two big topics that come along here. So, okay, and then you can see from here all sorts of nasty things happening. And then down here, this is in hell. So here you've got, just as you've got Abraham in heaven, you have his counterpart, the devil, in hell. You have various people. Here's a knight getting all sorts of things happening to him. And you get, I'll go down to a bit more detail. I mean, this is just fantastic stuff. It is really worth spending a while with. So here's a guy being
reds and yellows.
Is in flames. Sorry, go ahead. There's the knight, and they're ramming a pitchfork into him. And here's a guy that's probably a suicide, who's hung himself, etc. So worth looking at. So then Oda and I were there in the afternoon, and then afterwards, this priest, this was monk, and I think there are only 2 monks in the whole place. It's a very small affair. He gave a long lecture in French, which I didn't understand. And then he proceeded to play the organ, and then he gave a light show. And you've seen this possibly, that this is me hand-holding at 500 million. This is how they light it up with the lasers, using laser. It goes on. And they pick all these different areas out. Well, you can look at the whole thing yourself, but let's just have a look at a couple of these things, just how beautiful it is. This is how it would have looked back in the day. they use, because they've got the actual pigments there, they know what the colors were. And you just look at this incredible color. And you know, the using of the greens and the other colors, and it lifts out the writing so you can see it properly. I'll just give you a couple because it's spectacular. It wasn't very easy to focus. It wasn't, they've got like netting over it to stop the birds pooping on it. Spectacular. You look at those doors, just incredible. Right, so I encourage you to have a look at these in, you know, later. See that that's the brown door was the hell door, whereas the other door is golden, which was the heaven door, you know. And when you get down to this lot, it really pulls out all the stops. Okay, so that would be the tympana. That's the tympanum in there are also cloisters. Inside the cloisters, you've got Saint Foy. This is the Saint Foy statue. And you might remember, I think Alex did talk about this. We weren't allowed to take pictures, so I got this from the internet. So the interesting thing about this is probably the first relic. The relics really were from the 1100s, the time of the great pilgrimages. That's when the relics came up. Because beforehand, what you had was you had a saint getting buried, a martyr or a saint or someone like that. And then everyone wanted to get buried where he was. So they stuck the coffins on top of them. And then, you know, they had all these sarcophagi piled up. And then they built a church around it. And that's why the old churches, like St. Peter's, like the Vatican in Rome, St. Peter's, no, that's where St. Peter was most highly likely buried. You basically had the whole body, or you didn't have anything. Iconography was, you know, there wasn't allowed for a long period. You weren't allowed to make icons of things. And the whole idea of worshiping images was, you know, was because of the Byzantine approach was very much not allowed. And seeing that the Muslim religion was created around about 620 or so, that was slap bang in the middle of the period when you didn't have images, and that's why Muslims don't have images, and they got stuck, and the others moved on. And it was in this area of France, this Languedoc southern area, where where it became acceptable, and probably always was, to have a piece of a saint, and you didn't have to have the whole saint. So in this particular case, this is just a piece of her skull. So Saint-Jean was a girl, 12 years old in the time of Maximian or something like that. That's about 280 AD. He was the lesser Caesar to Diocletian, and she wouldn't renounce her faith, and so she was put to death. Initially, she was meant to be roasted on a grill, but there was a big thundercloud, and so she got beheaded instead. So she was in Agen, which is a bit of a distance away, and there was a decent traffic in pilgrimages to Agen. The monks in 866, one monk was sent out to go and steal this icon, which he did. He went to Agen, stole it, brought it back, and they stuck it into an even bigger gold icon. Probably some of this is Roman, some of it is, this crown was probably the crown of probably Louis the Pious, and the body bit, no one knows where that comes from, but it's all gold. It was very heavy, and it was probably, and they stuck it in a hole in the ground with all their other valuables. So she's a very important thing, part of the whole thing. In this cloisters, we've got some interesting sort of the standard stuff. This is again a sort of green man. It's a Celtic symbol. which is also in England a lot. And the one I wanted to show you were these knights. Here we have knights that are standing there with their shields. Quite interesting to see them. There's another one where here they're all sitting inside a castle and they're looking over the top. Again, this is probably something to do with the that order told you about Pax Dei, the peace of God, where they're telling the knights that they got to behave themselves and not go destroying stuff. So if we go inside the church, so this is has an older part and a newer part. This is like the older part, and then there was a newer part. So it was built so 1060 and then around about 1100 again. It took quite a long time to build. So there's some older and there's some newer capitals, and also the style changes. It's pretty. The style is very, very specific to that area, and you'll see why I say that. They've actually identified the two places that the people that carved that the sculptors came from. So you'll see here in the crossing. This is the crossing that has the bell tower above it. You had 4 angels in the crossing up the top here. You'll see there's some of these capitals are very high up. We were able to walk around the top there so we could see it. Here you can see the crossing. See 2 of the angels there. So all very nice and Romanesque. This is an interesting one. So here, I love taking, again, I could do a lecture on this stuff if you wanted, because I'm really into all of these misericordia, as they call it. So this is the misericordia. It's got the little projecting piece so that when the poor monks had to get up at 3 in the morning and wanted to sleep, they could rest their backsides on there and not fall over. It flaps up. So they have all sorts of things underneath which aren't religious. And here you can see the architect of the church. Here you see the church itself. And here you see the sculptor carving the capitals, and they've got a jug of wine underneath, which is probably a good idea. So let's have a look at some of the stuff here. So here the first thing is you got St. Peter and St. Paul, and you have here St. Peter getting crucified upside down. You know the story there. That's St. Peter. And we have the angels that you saw from, so this is closer up there. There are 4 of them, but they all have scrolls. So they all have scrolls. A lot of writing was going on. It wasn't just pictures, and that was very useful. Some very nice capitals here. They're using a yellow limestone, which glows. It's beautiful. We have, this is called an atlas. It's a very common thing. They have a person carrying what's above. I don't know that it has a particular meaning. Lots of different animals and birds and things. They very much went into pairs here as well. More oliphants. Again, these don't have any particular meaning that I know of. This is very much the type of person. You'll see that they're very squat. They have quite broad faces. They have fairly flattened noses. Very different from the sculptures that you saw in the others. So here we have the story of St. Foy that I told you about just now. Here you have Dacian, the local Roman potentate magistrate. Here is St. Foy with a hand on her chest saying, no, I won't worship Diana. I want to stay a Christian. And then these are the 2 soldiers ready to do the deed. Here you can see him holding up his hand and saying, and giving the command. You can see they're holding her hand. She's captive. And then here, I'm not too sure who that is behind there, but some saint or other that's accompanying her. Anyway, so that's the historic story what happened there. In actual fact, she's a concatenation of all sorts of different traditions from Asian and other things, and they stuck them all together and came up with a really good thing. This is the miser. So the miser has his bag of money. You can see the string there, and he's got these two devils, and it says at the bottom, so there you go, that's probably the better one. And it says being a miser is not going to do you any good at all. Beautiful devil's faces, absolutely incredible. So this is another thing that you'll only see in this area, is this basket weave pattern. They used this geflochten, the baskets were woven, and it's specific to the area. You won't see this, I don't think, anywhere else at all. And it later got, in later ones, it got replaced with the standard Corinthian foliage patterns. We have some nice ones down here. Here's the army. You see this is not a theological approach here at all. This is a knight, two knights fighting, and you can see his sword is cut into the shield of this knight, and his spear has penetrated the shield of the other. Again, this is probably about the Pax Dei. Then we have here, I think there's another one. So here we have also this guy's being held back, and this guy's got like some sort of instrument in his hand to hit with. And here you've got two mounted knights jousting with each other. He's got a lance, he's also got a lance, and they're having a good old fight. I guess that these symbols also meant something. This is again something you didn't see anywhere else. And then when we get to the end, here's our guy again, stuck underneath the column. They've got a lot of light-hearted things. There's not a lot of heavy theological. It's more about stories and images. And you can see the difference here. This was not subject to, it wasn't owned by anybody. It was an totally independent abbey, a complete misnomer in the whole area. Okay, so if we get back to our map, so I said that we would go here. So we've looked at Moissac, we've looked at Toulouse, we've looked at Conques. Let's go and look at another one, which is possibly interesting, which is Fontfroid, because again, this shows some very different aspects. So we go here, where was Fontfroid? It's in the Pays de Loire, I think. And, oops. No. Yeah, Fontfroid, the main at right. I've structured my tree according to the districts of France, and I don't really know it very well. So anyway, this is another one. So I wanted to show you, because Conques is such a different one. It doesn't fit into the mold. It's not part of the Cluniac, the great Cluniac Empire. This is another one. There was a guy called Robert of something or other. Call him Robert of Fontfroid. He was incredibly charismatic. He lived around about 1100, and he wandered around and he gathered this amazing. I'm just going to flip the pictures as you're going, as I'm talking. And he gathered a lot of men and women, and he eventually founded a monastery, and he founded it here. This is Fontfroid. It also got totally dismantled by the French revolutionaries, but it's been carefully rebuilt. And the interesting thing about this monastery is that it was men and women living together, which a lot of people didn't agree with at the time. He was also very, very charismatic, and people didn't necessarily like what he was doing. And the men and the women lived. His idea was men and women should actually sleep together in the same area, because then by having to resist the temptation, they're actually going to become better people. In reality, what happened was they split, but the women ran the place. So you had a big nunnery and a smaller monastery. The men had to do, you just look at the stuff as I go along, it's wonderful. The men had to do the menial tasks. The women were mostly, the abbess was of royal line. And the one, I think the first one was the sister of the king. And they were tough cookies, these people. And every now and again, the monks would revolt and they'd get put down very harshly by the women and all of their soldiers. And then they'd go back to doing all the menial tasks again. And they're still there. It's still the same structure. And you can see this, the church, it's got the Hagia Sophia type round domes going down the middle. And anyway, the thing about this monastery was it was incredibly important from a political perspective, because, say, the queen or the sister of the king was there, and she ruled the empire when he was away fighting, which was about almost all the time. So this was a very, very strong political importance of the monastery, run by women. This is Eleanor and her husband Henry II of England. This is Eleanor of Aquitaine, and she was very studious. And you remember that Eleanor of Aquitaine was the mother of four boys. One of them was John, who gave us the Magna Carta. One was Richard the Lionheart, who spent a total of 6 months in England because he couldn't even speak English. And Richard the Lionheart is actually buried here as well. So this is her. And if you go down further, I've got quite a lot of her, sorry. Below them. And here's Richard the Lionheart down here. Here he is. This is Richard the Lionheart, who went on the Third Crusade and did all of that stuff. So that just to see, these are their original graves. And this is, as I say, an independent monastery that had massive clout. As with all of the monasteries around about the thousands and the 1100s, or a lot of them, they were set up for the aristocracy to go to. Either they were nunneries and you put your wife in there after you died because you didn't want her to have more children to compete with your children, or you put your sisters in there because you didn't want them to have children, or some women just weren't interested in getting married and said, okay, I'm going to go in there. They were nice places to live. They were like good hotels. They had big suites where they lived in, and they had complete freedom. They could do whatever they wanted. We have some incredibly good capita here. I'm not going to go into them, but you can just look at what's going on. And if you want to go back and work out what the story was, this is the cloister. And there is somewhere there's a coffin here, which is pretty spectacular. Anyway, I just wanted to show you, I did like these. These are the ceiling bosses. I love ceiling bosses. Anyway, so that was the area of Fontfort. I'd like to go now to, let me go back up here. And so if you look, so we're now in Fontfort, but then now we're going to go to Montbard. And the reason why we're going to go there is because, so you have Cluny. I've told you all about Cluny. They were incredibly powerful. You had, Odilo building it up 1,000 to 1,040, and then from, I think, 1,040 to 1109, 69 years was Hugh of Semur. I showed you SEMUR-EN-BRIONNAIS last time, where he came from. He was immensely connected, and I said he was the Henry Kissinger of his age. But then he died. You've got that really bad guy coming in and stealing everything. And also they were getting richer and richer and richer. And so you've got these monks Benedictine monks who said, enough of this, the Cluny and the Benedictines have lost their way. We need to get back to the rule of Benedict in its essence. And they went to a place called Citeaux. And Citeaux it's just north of, so here's Cluny. So it's up here, sort of between Dijon and Cluny. We didn't go there because it's completely dismantled and is now, I think, a dairy. They make cheese. But one of the guys, one of them was from England, Robert, and the other guy was Bernard. So I've talked about Bernard of Clairvaux before. This is he. So they started off, it immediately got successful. They were very ascetic. They didn't believe in any ornamentation, and they really wanted to get back to the basics. And basically, what Cluny had been in the thousands, in the 1100s, is what the Cistercians became. So you got your Cistercians taking off. Bernard was highly connected, and at the time you had Innocent II as the Pope. This is around about 1120. He had a lot of difficulty. There was another Pope. At that stage, I didn't know which was going to become the anti-Pope. Luckily for him, it wasn't him. But there was a huge amount of diplomacy going on. And Bernard of Clairvaux was the one that did this diplomacy for not only for Innocent II, but especially for Innocent II. And you remember Innocent II and Bernard of Clairvaux called out the Second Crusade from the steps of Vézelay and all of that stuff. And what you will see is that the churches, the churches were either consecrated in 1092, which is when Urban II, who was a Cluniac monk himself, had to get out of Italy for a while because of difficulties, or it was done in 1132, which is when Innocent II had to get out, and he was hanging around Burgundy and all of those places, and most of the consecrations, the second wave, like Vézelay and Autun and everything, were done by Innocent II. So where is Montbard now? I want to go, no, it's Languedoc. I don't want to be in Aquitania anymore. I want to go up to Burgundy. There we are. Right. So here we are in Montbard. And what this is the, it's the Abbaye de Fontenay. So this was founded by Bernard of Clairvaux. And the reason why he put it there is because his mother lived very close by and he wanted to go back to where she was. She was aristocracy, absolutely sort of first level aristocracy, which is why he was so successful as a negotiator. Here you can see the buildings, and these are all this is the Cistercian area.
Tom, we're still seeing the map, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Is it, you see it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the, here you can see the church. Here you can see the chapter house, and upstairs is their sleeping area, and this is where the working area was. And so let's have a look at a couple of a bit slow. Here you can see the area all the way across there. And it's absolutely beautiful and completely isolated. This, I think, was a dovecote up here. This is an original building from 1100, something like that. And you go to the right and you'll get to the church. You speed it up. So here you got the church. This is the original entrance. So now what I wanted to show you was that the Cistercians had minimalistic decoration. There you can see it, no tympanum, no nothing. It's still beautiful. You look at this, all the capita here, absolutely nothing, unadorned. So very much that I didn't want to show you much more than that. There are quite a lot of tombs. So people like to get buried in the Cistercian churches. So there's all sorts of royalty getting buried. You know, these tombs are all original. There's the monk sitting there reading his book while he looks after them. And she's looking all and praying in the night next to her husband, etc. Then you look down, you go out there from this is down the sides of the churches here. These have been Gothicized. Originally, it would not have been Gothic. It was done in a Romanesque style, but they changed it. Again, the Cistercians were founded because they wanted to get back to basics. And here you see, this is where they slept. There were no windows here because Bernard reckoned that you had to be tough and you had to suffer in order to be able to understand the way that Jesus suffered. He himself was into self-mortification. He wore a hair shirt. He wore some sort of metal thingy on his leg to cut into his skin. He did all that sort of stuff. And so it was really tough. It was ice cold here and not much fun. But it wasn't meant to be fun being a monk. But anyway, the Cistercians were founded for that reason. But, you know, what Bernard of Clairvaux did was he went about taking away all the Benedictine monasteries from the Cluniacs. That was his major mission, and from all the others. And so very quickly, there were hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of monasteries and priories belonging to the Cistercians. Of course, they got very rich, and, you know, normal story, within a generation or two, they were where the others had been. And that's when the mendicant friars came along, the Franciscans, the Dominicans, the Augustinians, and they replaced them. So I think it's fantastic. This is the original roof as well. Beautiful gardens. And I just want to show you one thing here. So this is going into the chapter house. So again, you can see it's still beautiful because of the geometry of everything. You can see that this is a Romanesque period chapter house. The windows aren't original, unfortunately, I don't think. But that's the chapter house. But again, no adornment. And I would like to show you one other thing. This is, they have a mill. They have a blacksmith shop and a mill, and it's still working. Well, I think they actually, so this is the original iron, minerai de fer. And this is you can see the hammer, which is water mill driven. So they've got a blacksmith shop here, and they're hammering away at that. Here you have, it's the Forge of Fontenay. And so here you see there's the fire, where there's the bellows for blowing up, you know, heating up the fire. And here's the water-powered hammer, which comes here. And if we look outside, so here you see this goes around, and this goes clonk, 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 clonk each time one of these things hits it. This is turning around. On the outside, you've got the watermill. There's a model of it, and it's actually, there it is, that's the mill. Okay, they've reconstructed it to a degree, but it's pretty fantastic to see. So what the monks were doing there, they had their own metalworking. They probably also ground grain, etc. Little bit of a sidestep, but just to show you that. Okay, so and here are a couple of capitals. Here's a ceiling boss, you know, the middle bit where it all comes together, and a couple of. But those would have been done later than when Bernard was no longer around, because he was a pretty much of a sourpuss, I must say. So let's go to another one, which I think might be interesting to you. So if we go back to the map, and here you see, this is this guy, Philibert. So Alex told you about Turnus, and Philibert, it's with the remains of Turnus. So Philibert was from what, 590 to 650, somewhere around there. Basically, he was born when Benedict of Nursia died. He's just like the next one generation later. He came from Gascony. I just want to show you how incredibly international they were, or mobile. He came from Gascony. I think his father was a magistrate. He went all the way up here. This is in the time of the Merovingian kings, and he went to Roubaix. Now let me just hop back there and show you. because I think it's quite interesting. Well, I find it interesting, possibly. Come on. So if I go back, where do I want to go? I want to go to the Romanesque talk here. If we look here. So this is now Merovingian times, round about, this is when Charles Martel, the one who eventually beat the Arabs, you'll remember, this is 714 when he is seated to the throne. You had Neustria, which was the western half of the Merovingian Empire, and you had Austrasia, which is the eastern half. Really sort of they came from, the tribe originally came here from the Belgian area. And so you had Austrasia and Neustria. The rulers were related, but they were fighting against each other. Anyway, he went to Neustria. And but one interesting thing here is to see that the Arabs actually had Al and Narbonne, and all of this area was part of the Arabic part. Then they pushed higher up, and then Charles Martel pushed them back to the other side of the Pyrenees, and then they slowly worked them back again. So anyway, that's interesting, I think, to see the structure there. And so if we go back here, so back to the map, you should see the map now. Yeah. So so he was in Roubaix, and then the king, this is in the western part, the Neustria, the king was his protector, and it was all good. And then the king died, and he had two sons, and the one son was off on Austrasia, and the other one was in Neustria. And they were both young, so the grandmother took over, and then the son got had a girlfriend, and this guy Philibert did not agree with it, and he told him that's not a good thing. And the grandmother thought, well, if he gets a wife, then I'm out the picture. So she had him shipped off, and he went to Austrasia for a while. But then what he went to Jumiges. I'm not too sure how you pronounce this. Jumiges is basically, this was all forest. So what happened was after the Romans basically pulled out, which is around about 300, 400, you had, we're not talking about 640, about 250 years later. That's a long time for trees to grow. As Brian can tell you from England, trees grow pretty quickly. And so what they did was he was given land, and but it was in the middle of a huge forest. And he went in and cleared that, and he cleared more, and he cleared more. And then people saw that he was doing a good job, so they gave him other land to clear. And so gradually, quite quickly, he built up a very big, the monastery of Jumiges had many sub-priories, and they became very powerful and rich. And if we look at Lightroom here and we go up to Normandy and go, where was it? Normandy General here, and the Abbey of Jumiges. So here, this is the Abbey. And again, it got completely destroyed by the French revolutionaries. They really didn't like it because it was such a symbol of power. So this is where he started. And it has, there are very few things left. The thing was absolutely massive and very beautiful. And so every now and again, you can see very small things here. But really, there's not a lot to see. What happened, though, is what happened with these guys is they were people that didn't want to be in a big institution. They were revolutionaries, or they were different. And it happened a lot of the times. People that founded monasteries moved on because they didn't like the fact that this has now become an established enterprise, and they wanted to be out doing other things. So he went down here to Noirmoutier, which is a little island, or was an island, in the middle of the sea, of the Atlantic Ocean here. You see it across. So there it is. So there's a little land bridge here, but it's basically an island. And he founded this monastery there. That got quite successful, and then he died. So they kept his remains there. And then the Normans in about 800, so that was now 640, 650. Now we go forward another 150 years, and suddenly the Normans start coming down and causing trouble. So the Normans, as you know, come from way up here in the Scandinavian area, and he. So okay, and so they left, and they went up a little bit further. Let me just get this one back again. This is Philibert. So here we go. So they go from there, they go a little bit further north, and they go to this place called something like Saint-Philibert Grand Lieu, I think it's called, which is around about here, where that dot is. And that was okay, but then the Normans, so this is around about 800 they started moving. They got his remains, and they were all going along with his remains. Then the Normans started moving up the Loire River and chased them out of there. So they went all the way across here to Tunis. And so we go to Tunis, and that's where they were able to settle. That was in 866. So they were traveling for about 40, 50, 60 years with this guy's remains and trying to find a place where they could stop. So so we go back now to Burgundy, and we go to Tunis. And here we got the Abbey de Saint-Philibert. And this abbey, this is the town of Tunis. You can see a very old, that's here there. And here, this is the church. Looks quite similar to the Conch church. You can see this thing was built even about the time when the first lot of Conch was built, 866. And it literally goes back to that time, which means it's probably the oldest thing that you're going to see here. And there's not a lot remaining of it. Here's some of the heads that were there. A couple of the statues. What I want to show you is if you go up, so this is you can see this looks more like a Norman building from England, Norman Cathedral. And yeah, what they do have is they have surviving from that time, from the original building, surviving from that day, you have the zodiac mosaics. So I wanted to show you that because obviously these were copied at a later stage in the capital. So there you're looking at something that's about 1,200 years old. So that was Tunis, and they had a sub abbey called Kunault, which I could show you, but I won't show you this time. I think that's probably sort of close to getting wrapped up. So what you've seen then is you've seen that we have a number of different, so just to mention, St. Philibert did not follow the rule of St. Benedict, but the monastery that he joined up in Roubaix was Columbanus, was an Irish monk who went out shortly before he was there, or the next generation was there when Philibert was there, and they followed a different rule, the rule of Columbanus, which is more of the Irish rule, and the Benedict rule from Italy. So you had different rules in these monasteries, which expressed themselves differently in their art. You had different structures, in that you had like the Cistercian structure, the Benedictine structure, the Cluniac structure. You had independent abbeys that grew up around a certain thing. And all of this expressed itself differently in the art, whether they were just showing things that were around St. Lazarus and around all the ceremonies around having the relics of a Lazarus, or whether they were really being theologically very specific and dogmatic, as they were in Moissac, or if they were just sort of riffing on stuff like they were in Conch. And I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I would wrap up now and I'd say that's a good place to stop, and get comments if you like, please. And then possibly you can also talk about what you might like to see more, if you want to have anything more.
Thank you very much. That was really super to see all your photos. It's really super. It's better than any guidebook, I think.
Thank you.
I agree. It's very, very interesting to see all of this in detail. Things that I would miss if I were looking on my own.
I agree too. I mean, thanks so much, Tom. It's fabulous, fabulous.
Oh, thank you. I'm really pleased. I hope so. As I say, if you want to, I can do more. I don't have to do them straight away. We're going to be traveling a bit and back and forward. But if you want more pictures to be shown, I'm happy to do so. And but is there anything specific that you'd like to see? So if you look here, I've got Austria, Belgium, Canada, France, Spain. You name it. They're all there. English cathedrals, naive painting, well, the whole thing. I mean, we were just in Washington for Uda's birthday, in Washington D.C. So here are this is the National Gallery of Art. Unfortunately, we were only there for a day, so I only took just under 4,000 pictures, and I'm almost finished editing them. These are the rooms from the Washington from the National Gallery of Art. I'm almost finished everything, but so there's all of that stuff as well. It's really up to you if you say I'd like to see something, and I can put it together.
Well, Tom, there's I mean, it's such a vast choice. If you'd allow me to be very specific, and I don't know if everybody else would be interested in this, but you mentioned misericords. Now, they're quite big in English cathedrals, and we're sticking with the medieval there, and I would be fascinated to hear more.
Well, yeah, if you think of Bristol, for example, they've got wonderful misericordia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually misericords and not misericordia, you're right. I could do that.
But that's just me. I mean, there's so much. I mean, that's such a massive list of choices, isn't it?
Any other thoughts?
I'd be interested in some of your Spanish stuff, actually. Okay. Because you'll have been to Cordoba and a place like that I've never been to. Open your Spanish thing. Let's see what's underneath it.
Okay, so here's Spain. Oops, let's close here. So this is Spain. Okay, so well, it's divided into different regions.
Right.
We haven't been to. What we haven't done so far is go to the extreme northwest to Galicia, and we